This is the Grant Caldwell Report. And before we get into it, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss critical updates. Because this story is moving fast, and the timeline is already getting twisted online. Tonight, a major Hollywood power player is in full damage control mode. Casey Wasserman, the chair of the LA 28 Organizing Committee, has begun the process of selling his namesake talent and sports marketing agency after old email exchanges with Ghislaine Maxwell resurfaced in newly released Justice Department investigative materials tied to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Now stay with me, because in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to separate what's confirmed from what's being implied, and then I'm going to show you the one detail that explains why an agency gets put on the block, while an Olympic leadership role survives the same controversy. Here's what's confirmed in reporting. The controversy centers on decades-old email correspondence with Maxwell that has become newly visible again because of document releases and renewed public scrutiny. The emails are described in coverage as flirtatious or sexually suggestive in tone, and the reaction has been immediate. Clients and the public don't wait for a courtroom to decide how they feel. And that's the first trap in this story. People see Epstein files, and they jump straight to conclusions. So let's be clean with language. Being referenced in documents is not the same thing as being charged with a crime. And the reporting on this situation has not described Wasserman as being criminally charged in connection with Epstein's crimes. But here's the second trap. Don't confuse not charged with no consequences. In entertainment and high-profile business, consequences hit first in reputations, relationships, and money. And that brings us to the move that tells you the pressure is real. Wasserman is selling the agency. Hold that thought, because people keep asking the wrong question. The internet keeps asking, is he guilty? The smarter question is, why does the market punish him while the institution protects him? Because the answer tells you how power actually works. Let's talk about what Wasserman himself has said in reported statements. He has expressed regret about the emails. He has apologized for the lapse in judgment, and he has denied having a personal or business relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That denial is important, not as a shield from criticism, but because it defines what is being alleged versus what is being stated as fact. Now here's where the story gets sharper. LA 28 reviewed the situation and, for now, kept him as chair. So you have two tracks of accountability running at the same time. Track 1 is market accountability. Clients don't like scandals. Brands don't like uncertainty. And when a person at the top becomes the headline, everyone underneath them becomes collateral damage. Agents, assistants, managers, people who didn't write any emails, suddenly have to defend the optics just to do their jobs. Deals slow, calls get returned later, quiet exits start happening. Track 2 is institutional accountability. Boards don't move like clients. Boards move like risk managers. They ask one question first. Can we survive this? And if the answer is yes, leadership usually stays. Now stay with me because this is where it gets uncomfortable. If Casey Wasserman is too big of a distraction to keep running his own agency cleanly, why isn't he too big of a distraction to lead the most public-facing project in American sports for the next 2 years? That contradiction is the story, and it's why people are angry, even if they can't articulate it. The anger isn't only about an email, it's about the pattern, powerful circles, repeated proximity, and a system that seems to apply different standards depending on how connected you are. Now, I'm going to say this plainly because it matters. You can criticize the emails, you can criticize the judgment, you can criticize the leadership optics, without inventing crimes that haven't been charged. Both things can be true at the same time. The optics are serious, and the internet is still capable of exaggeration. Here's how misinformation spreads in stories like this. Someone posts, his name is in the files, and suddenly every rumor becomes confirmed. That's not reporting, that's narrative warfare. So here's what we can responsibly say. Older communications between Wasserman and Maxwell resurfaced through document releases and renewed scrutiny. Backlash followed. He has apologized for the correspondence and denied any relationship with Epstein, and he is selling the agency amid pressure. Now let's talk about why selling the agency is not the end of the controversy, because this part is crucial. Selling the agency is containment. It's moving the blast radius. When the agency is the vehicle of controversy, every client and brand partnership becomes a hostage. The agency becomes a daily reminder of the scandal. But when you pivot, when you sell, restructure, or step back, You shift the controversy into a slower-moving environment. Committees, boards, reviews, statements, and institutional buffering. That is not the same as accountability. It's crisis management. And it creates a new question. Is the sale a real exit or a strategic shield? Because selling can mean different things. A full divestment is one thing. A partial stake transfer is another. A rebrand with the same influence behind the curtain is another. The public headline might say sale, but the details are what matter. And those details determine whether this is a genuine step away or a controlled repositioning. Now here's the part that should keep you watching. LA28 isn't just a committee. It's sponsors, donors, contracts, global attention, and reputational risk. Boards can vote confidence. Sponsors can vote consequences. So if you want to predict what happens next, stop watching the statements and start watching the pressure points. Here are the 4 that matter. First, do client exits remain a trickle or become a stampede? 1 or 2 departures is embarrassing. A wave becomes existential, and a wave forces real change, fast. Second, what are the sale terms? Full divestment or reshuffle? If the structure stays the same, the story doesn't end. It just changes clothing. Third, does sponsor pressure hit LA28? If sponsors stay calm, the board holds. If sponsors hesitate, boards suddenly reassess. That's how the world works. Not by morality speeches, by risk calculations. Fourth, are there additional document releases or revelations? In stories like this, the first wave is the headline. The next wave is the context. And context is what turns a controversy into a sustained crisis. Now let me bring this back to the bigger picture, because this is not just celebrity gossip. This is a credibility test. When institutions keep leaders in place during scandal, they're making a bet. The public will move on. Sometimes they're right. But every time they make that bet, they gamble a little more of the public's trust. And that's why these stories keep landing the same way. People don't believe the system applies consistent standards. They believe there are standards for regular people and standards for the connected. So here's what the Grant Caldwell report is going to do. We're going to stay anchored to verifiable facts. We're going to call out narrative manipulation when we see it. And we're going to track the pressure points that actually force change: clients, contracts, sponsors, and governance decisions. Because the truth in scandals isn't revealed by the loudest tweet. It's revealed by what powerful institutions do when the money gets nervous. If you want to keep up with this story as it develops, subscribe. And leave an answer for me in the comments. Should leadership optics matter even when no charges are filed, or is reputation a separate issue from legality?